Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We are holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and Mirtz Hashem today we will be learning Daf. I lost the place. 1 second. Here we are. Mirtz Hashem today we are going to be learning Daf Samach Zayin Amid Beis. So we're continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on Samach Zayin Amid Aleph. We have some unfinished business here in Siman Reish Tzadik Sif Beis. We're up to Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Ches. Our learning today should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanasuna Batzara Ubashivya Ha'imnim Bein Bayom Ubein Bayabasha Hamakom Yirachem Aleihem V'Yitziam Yitzar L'Rvacha Me'afelu L'Oira Mishibud L'Geula Hashta Bagolo V'Zman Kariv and Emar Amein. Our learning should be a schus refuah shalema for Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel, Yitzchak Baruch ben Rachel Shalva, Tzvi ben Leah Miriam, Daniel ben Naomi. Our learning should also be a schus for Yisrael ben Rachel, Yedison ben Michal, and Yoel ben Michal. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over them. The Rebbeinu Shalom should protect them together with all of our brothers and sisters who find themselves in harm's way. B'chol makom shehem. Okay, so here in Siman Reish Tzadik Sif Beis, the Mechaber told us that on Shabbos afternoon we have to be Koveya Medrash. We have to set a time for learning Torah. We have to have a drasha. The Mishnah Berurah told us, brought down, Shabbos and Yom Tov were given to us in order to have time to learn Torah. Like the Torah Akdosha said to the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Torah Akdosha said, it's very nice you gave the Torah in the Midbar. In the Midbar, people have plenty of time to learn Torah. They don't have to work for a living, but they're going to come into Eretz Yisrael. They're going to run out to their vineyards. They're going to run out to their fields. What's going to be with me? I'm going to be left alone. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, don't worry, I have a Ben Zug. I have a Shidduch for you. What's your Shidduch? Shabbos. Shabbos, there's no malacha. Shabbos, people aren't busy working. Shabbos and Yom Tov is a time that's set aside for limud Torah. Therefore, we have to be koveya. We have to set time on Shabbos afternoon for learning Torah. Then the Mechaber told us, not only that, once we have that set time for learning Torah Shabbos afternoon, also likbaya suda ba'isa shah. You're not allowed to sit down and be koveya your suda. You're not allowed to sit down and eat your Suda Shabbos afternoon during the time of the drasha, during the time that was set for the people to come to Mishnah Berurah and learn. That's completely inappropriate. That's the time that's set for limud HaTorah. You don't go make your Suda at that time. Now we turn to Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Ches, where the Chavetz Chaim says, Suda ba'isa shah, says the Chavetz Chaim, V'lechol b'li kiviyah Suda. But if you want to sit down and you want to eat during the time that's set aside for the limud HaTorah. Now again, you have a chiyuv, you have an obligation. You're supposed to be going to learn Torah at that time. But the Mechaber did not couch this halacha that somehow mechuyev to go to the drasha and therefore it's usher to eat. Yes, it's usher to be kaveh suda during that time. But that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to eat at all during the time that's set aside for this limud HaTorah. Why aren't you there? That's a different story. You're supposed to be there. Why aren't you there? I don't know why you're there. But okay, if you have a reason why you can't be there, you have a reason why you can't go to the drasha, and now you want to eat something, does it mean you're not allowed to eat anything at all? Says the Chavetz Chaim, no. If you want to eat without kviyas suda. Now, what does this mean? In the context of this halacha, what does it mean to eat without kviyas suda? Says the Chavetz Chaim like this. If you want to sit down and you want to eat, even if you want to eat a meal, but it's not going to be a Shabbos meal, you're going to eat like you would eat a regular Tuesday lunch. That's what you want to eat now. That's during the time of the drasha, during the time of the kviyos beis medrash. You want to sit down and you want to eat a meal, but you're not going to eat a Shabbos meal. You're not going to sit down and wash on Lechamishta and have cholent, etc., etc. You're going to make a lesser Suda. You're going to make like a weekday Suda. Niresh mutter. The Chavetz Chaim says it would appear that that's mutter. V'chanal b'siman reish mem tes sif beis le'inyan erev Shabbos ayin sham. What the Chavetz Chaim is saying over here is, we learnt in siman reish mem tes that there's an iser to be kaveh Suda on Erev Shabbos, so that you should come to the Suda Friday night b'teyavain. You should come to the Suda Friday night with an appetite. So you're not Kivei Suda Friday afternoon. But what type of Kivei Suda? We learned that the Isser only is to eat a bigger meal than you would normally eat during the week. You want to eat the same type of lunch Friday afternoon that you would eat on Tuesday. Tuesday you would eat a tuna fish sandwich. So now Friday afternoon you want to eat a tuna fish sandwich. That's okay. Even though that is certainly called being Kivei Suda. You're washing, you're having lechem, you're probably going to have more than a kibetza of lechem, so that's called halachically being kaveh suda, but not in the context of that halacha. In the context of the halacha of not being kaveh suda erev Shabbos, so that you should come to the suda Friday night, b'teyavoin, the halacha is you're not allowed to eat more than you would normally eat during the week. Now, the Gemara in Gittin compares these two halachas one to the other. The halacha of eating on Friday afternoon, being kaveh suda on Friday afternoon, and the halacha of being kaveh suda during the time of the drasha. So the same way, you can't eat more than you would eat on a normal suda during the week on Friday afternoon. That's also what you're not allowed to do during the time of the drasha. You're not allowed to eat a bigger suda, which the Chavetz Chaim calls over here being kaveh suda k'moshe ragel b'yamais Shabbos. That means making a big suda. That's what you can't do. Okay, continues the Chavetz Chaim. V'hinei. Kevan Chatam Sha'asr Chazal Kviya Suda Oz. Why did the Chazal Aser being Kviya Suda during the drasha? Mipnei Yispatel Al Yedeh Zemi Torah. Because that's called being Mevatel from Torah. It's the time of the drasha. You belong by the drasha. So don't be Kviya Suda now. Memela, from that, Nishma, you could hear, to be Kolshkein, certainly. Shetzarech lizayer, you have to be very careful. Shelo yigraim al yedei zeh bittul Talmud Torah, the Rabbim. If we're telling you a halacha that you're not allowed to be kaveh suda Shabbos afternoon during the time of the Bismedrish, during the time of the drasha, because that's bittul Torah. So alakas kama v'kama kal v'chomer, certainly you have to be very careful not to do anything that's going to be mevatel the Torah of the Rabbim on Shabbos afternoon. Kegoyin, for example, says the Chavetz Chaim, Masha Matzoi ba'avoynoseinu harabim. The Chavetz Chaim says, unfortunately, it is commonplace. Le'eza anoshim, by certain people, shemizarzin l'ha'olam b'Shabbos b'kayitz, that on Shabbos afternoon during the summer, when the day is very long, af she'oida yoim gadol, even though there's plenty of time, it's a long day. So Shkia, let's say, is 7:30, 8:30 at night. So you've got a very long Shabbos afternoon. And yet, you have people Shabbos afternoon that are going around being Mizaris people. They're urging people, Lehispalel mincha, come, let's daven an early mincha, or lekayim asud shlishis, and let's make shalosh shudas. So in other words, davening was over at 10:30, or davening was over at 11 o'clock. People went home, they had a suda. After the suda, they went and they took a little nap. Now, after the nap, people are urging them, let's go daven mincha, and let's make shalosh shudas. Says the Chavetz Chaim, that's really the time that's supposed to be for the Bismedrish. That's really the time that's supposed to be for the Drasha. And you're going around and you're trying to round up people to go daven mincha early and to go make an early shalosh shudas? You're being mavatal Torah derabim, says the Chavetz Chaim. The garbim, and they cause shekol anshe beis hamedrish, that the people that are in the Bismedrish yafsiku milimudam. In other words, somebody comes into the Bismedrish, there's 20 people sitting and learning in the Bismedrish, and somebody comes in at 1:30 in the afternoon and says, Rabbi Isai, let's daven mincha, and after mincha, let's make shalosh shudas. What happens? So now 15 people are going to close the Gemaras, and they're going to go daven mincha, and they're going to go eat shalosh shudas. Kfar Amru Chazal, we have a Gemara, Masechta Shabbos, Kuf Yud Ches Amud Beis. Amar Rabbi Yosi said, Yehei chelki mimoshivei beis hamedrish. My chelik, my portion, should be amongst those people who cause people to sit down in the Bismedrish, who cause people to open up a sefer and learn in the Bismedrish. V'loi mima'amidei beis hamedrish. My chelik shouldn't be amongst those who cause people to leave the Bismedrish. In the Gemara over there at Shabbos, it says, you have different people. You have the people that go and urge people, come into the Bismedrish, sit down, learn. Then you have the person who, at the end of second Seder in the yeshiva, who makes sure to give a clap and says, Rabbi Isai, at 6:30, second Seder is over. So now you're the one who's chasing people out of Beis Medrash. Said Rabbi Yossi, you know what? I want my chelik to be the one who's urging people to come into the Beis Medrash and to sit and learn, not the ones, even if it's for somewhat a good reason, but not the ones that are chasing people out of the Beis Medrash. Unless you're talking about a short Shabbos afternoon, or even a long Shabbos afternoon, but it's late in the day, and Pashut, it's almost Shkia, and we have to daven mincha, we have to eat Shalosh Shudas. No, at that point, Yutaka could urge people, let's daven mincha, it's the appropriate time. That would be proper to be Mazaris people. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Ein lahamshech hadrasha. Cautionary note to the Rav. Don't lose track of time. Keep your eye on the clock. Don't make the drasha too long. Sometimes somebody gets carried away, and now it's going to be 20 minutes after Shkia. People can't wash and sit down and eat Shalosh Shudas anymore. So take it easy. You know, you want to give a drasha, that's fine. That's very important. But make sure that you keep the time in mind. Okay. That concludes the Mishnah Berurah for Siman Reitz Tzadik, but we need to turn back now to Samach Zayin Amud Aleph, and we have some unfinished business here. We have to do the Ramah that begins 2 lines off the bottom near the end of the line. Samach Zayin Amud Aleph says the Ramah. Hago. Upayalim, laborers, ubalibatim, businessmen, she'enon oiskim b'Torah kol yemei hashavua. People who are not sitting and learning all week. These are people who have jobs, who are laborers, so you have electricians and carpenters and plumbers, and then you have balabatim, you have accountants, I guess kind of like, blue-collar workers and white-collar workers, but these are people that are not Kel Yungelite. These are not people that are sitting and learning all week. Yasku yoyser b'Torah b'Shabbos, mi talmidei chachamim ha'oiskim b'Torah kol yemei hashavua. So, it's a funny thing. You come into the Beis Medrash Shabbos afternoon, and you see the Koil Yungelite sitting in the Beis Medrash Shabbos afternoon. Says the Ramah, it's not the Koil Yungelite that have to be careful to be in the Beis Medrash Shabbos afternoon. It's the Balabatim who have to take extra care to be in the Beis Medrash Shabbos afternoon. They don't learn all week. So Shabbos afternoon, they belong in the Beis Medrash, spending their whole time learning. So they should learn on Shabbos afternoon more than the Koil Yungelite. More. Yoser b'Torah b'Shabbos mi talmidei chachamim ha'oiskim b'Torah kol yemei hashvua. Continues the Ramah, and the opposite, v'atalmidei chachamim, the ones that sit and learn all week, yamshichu yoser ba'oineg achilu shtiiktzas. They should spend a little bit more time on their Shabbos Suda, on their Shabbos afternoon nap. They're being misaneg al divrei Torah all week. They're busy with divrei Torah all week. On Shabbos afternoon, they could put a little more time to what we call Einik Shabbos, to the Suda, to a good nap. The Balabatim, I'm sorry, you're not in the Beis Medrash all week. Shabbos afternoon, you got to drink up every minute, and you got to be in the Beis Medrash. That concludes Siman Reitz Tzadik. Let's move on to Siman Reitz Tzadik Aleph Din Shalosh Su'udais. The halachas that govern what we colloquially call Shalosh Shudas, which has no meaning, but whatever. It's Shalosh Su'udais became Shalosh Shudas. So Din Shalosh Su'udais, the halachas of Shalosh Su'udais, Ubay Vav Se'ifim, and here we have 6 Se'ifim, says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Yehei Zahir Ma'oid. Somebody should take great care, Lekayim Suda Shlishis, to be Mekayim, the halacha of eating a third Suda on Shabbos. Va'afim hu Seveya, and even if he's already satisfied, he had a nice big Suda Friday night, he had a nice delicious Suda Shabbos morning, now Shabbos afternoon he's not really hungry. Va'afim hu Seveya, even if you're satisfied, still, Yachal Lekayim Oisa, you could still be Mekayim eating Shalosh Shudas, Bekabetza, by eating, the Mishnah Berurah is going to say, a little bit more than the volume of an egg. In other words, you don't have to sit down to Shalosh Shudas and have a 3-course meal. You could have Shalosh Shudas, wash on Lechem Mishnah, eat a little bit more than a kabetza of challah, and you were already yotza. You're Shalosh Shudas. So even if you're satisfied, go sit down and eat a little bit more than a kabetza. Be Mekayim the halacha of Shalosh Shudas. Continues the Mechaber. But if you push it, can't eat. It's the winter, it's this season, it's a very short day. There was a long davening, and then he had a long Gishmak Suda, and now Pashut, it's time for Shalosh Shudas, and he can't eat anymore. He's not mechuyev to go put himself in pain and suffer from overindulgence and have indigestion because he forced himself to go eat shal shudis. Says the Mechaber, but therefore be smart. Don't, overindulge and gorge yourself on the Shabbos morning Suda. You know it's a short day. So when you eat the Shabbos morning Suda, make sure you leave a little room for Shalosh Shudis. If you didn't, and now it's Pashit, you're going to be B'tzar, if you try to eat Shalosh Shudis, then don't eat Shal Shudis, like the Mishnah Berurah is going to say. The whole idea of the third Suda is for Tainug. This is all a Chiyav Oinik Shabbos. If it's not an Oinik, if it's Tsar, you're not Chiyav to be Mitzar yourself. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Aleph. Yehezot here Ma'oid. The Mechaber said you should take great care to be Mekayim the Chiyav of Shal Shudis. Says the Chavetz Chaim, V'chedeisa b'Gemara. This is like we find in the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Chayiv Adam lechel shalosh suudais b'Shabbos. There's a chayiv to eat 3 suudas on Shabbos. V'asberchu hakra. And the Chazal based this on a pasuk. They found a basis for it in a pasuk. It's not a daraisa. It's a din derabanan. This is what we call an asmachta. It's a din derabanan that the Chazal supported by a pasuk, but it's a din derabanan, not a din daraisa. Diksiv, because the pasuk says, "Vayomer Moshe." Moshe was speaking to Klal Yisrael about the mun. Vayomer Moshe. Moshe said he was talking about erev Shabbos. He was talking about Shabbos. An extra portion of mun fell on Friday. Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Klal Yisrael what to do with that extra portion of mun, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Vayomer Moshe, ichaluhu hayoim, eat it today." You have the word Hayoim. Ki Shabbos Hayoim Lashem. Because today is Shabbos for Hashem. Another word Hayoim. Hayoim Loisim Tzu'uhu Basade. Today on Shabbos, you're not going to find money if you go out to collect. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Utalasa Hayoim Kosav B'Krazeh. We have in this pasuk the word Hayoim 3 times. And that's where we get the idea of Shalosh Shudis. You have to have 3 Seudos keneged the 3 mentions of Hayoim in the pasuk that speaks about eating the mun on Shabbos. Chazal tell us, anybody who consistently fulfills the halacha of shalosh seudos, and he eats 3 seudos every Shabbos with the kavana of Oinik Shabbos, nitzal mishalosh peranios, he will be saved from 3 punishments. What are the 3? Rabbi say, gotta hear this. Mechevlai shal Mashiach. You'll be exempted from the travails of Yemais HaMashiach, the overturning of the world, and all the tzaras, chas chalila, that could go on during that time. You'll be saved from them. Okay? Umidina shal Gehinam. He'll be saved from Gehenna. You won't have to go to Gehenna. Umi melchemes goig umagoig. And you'll also be saved from the travails and the sufferings of the war of goig umagoig. So these are all things, we're watching all the events going on in the world nowadays. I think these are things that you want to pay attention to. Even if you have a poor person, a poverty-stricken person who is wandering from town to town, and the Bezdin, the municipalities, are supporting him, and they're giving him money from the pushka, they have to give him enough money, or they have to give him enough food to have 3 Sudas at Shabbos. It's not enough to give him for 2. You got to give him for 3. V'chedeisa b'yaredei b'siman reish nun in hilchos tzedakah. V'ayin le'el b'siman reish ben beis b'Mishnah Berurah da'af b'shvil svudish lishas kishamasik beis ha'makim lilvais sarich lilvais. We learned earlier in Siman reish ben beis, in the beginning of Hilchos Shabbos, that you need to borrow for shalosh seudos. If you don't have any money to buy shalosh seudos, but you have somebody you could borrow from and you'll be able to pay him back, you got to borrow in order to be able to make shalosh seudos. The Mechaber told us that if you're not hungry, if you're satisfied, so eat a kibetza. Those were the words of the Mechaber. Eat an equivalent of bread of the volume of an egg, a kibetza. Says the Mishnah Berurah, kibetza lav davka. The language of the Mechaber is not 100% precise. Elama'at yoiser mikibetza. You have to eat a little bit more than a kibetza to be yoitza shal shudis. The kibetza because if you eat up to the volume of an egg, mikri adayin achilas arai, that's still called a snack, halachically. So you wouldn't be yoytze eating shalosh shudas with an achilas arai, you need an achilas kva. Kamashakasa says Siman reish lamed beis, v'lei choshes suda. V'yesharmim, there are those that say shafilu b'kazayis yoytze yidei suda. There are those that say that you don't even have to eat so much. You don't have to eat the volume of a kibetza, you can eat the volume of a kazayis. But v'nachal lahachmir lechatchila one should be machmir im efshaloi. If it's possible for him, he should eat at least a kibetza. Then the Mechaber said, if it's mamish not possible for somebody to eat, if he eats, he's going to suffer from eating. So then, okay, so then ein chayiv l'tzaras atzmai. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Gimel ein chayiv tasuda loinig nitna. The whole purpose of the suda is einig Shabbos for loy l'tzar. Certainly, we don't have a chayiv of eating 3 sudas on Shabbos in order to suffer. Then the Mechaber said that a wise person, a chacham, ein of baroshai, a chacham has eyes in his head and he looks into the future. So don't gorge yourself on Shabbos morning. Leave room for shalosh su'udais. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Dal litin makayim dim loikein, because if you don't pay attention to this, l'pa'amim hi achila gasa. Sometimes eating shalosh sudas could mamish become achila gasa. It's you mamish. It's eating is even repulsive to you, and that's not considered. Says the Mishnah Berurah, that's not even called an achila. For example, if you take a look at Hilchas Matzah, if you sit down to the Seder and you make a bracha, matzah, and then you're mamish gorged, you're stuffed to the gills, the very idea of eating is repulsive to you, and you stuff the matzah down your throat, that's called an achila gasa. It's not an achila. Halachically, it's not called an act of eating. And therefore, you wouldn't be yoytze yechiv of matzah. So an achil gasa is mamish not called an achila. So you have to be careful that your shalosh shudas doesn't come to achila gasa. Okay, now we have a very interesting halacha here that's going to be a little bit repetitive of something that we learned earlier on in Hilchas Shabbos. Let's go to the Ramah here, 3 lines into Siman Reish Tzadik Aleph. Hago, says the Ramah. Umi shaloi achal b'leil Shabbos. So we're covering here that there's a chiyuv of shalosh su'udais. You have to have 3 su'udais on Shabbos. All right. You have the Friday night suda, that's suda number 1. You have the Shabbos morning suda, that's suda number 2. And then you have shalosh su'udais, the 3rd suda, Shabbos afternoon. What happens if you didn't eat Friday night? Now, there's a lot of reasons why this could have happened. You could have been stuck somewhere and you never had a chance to eat Friday night. Maybe somebody was sick Friday night. He didn't eat a suda Friday night. So you did not eat a suda Friday night. Now it's Shabbos by day. Now, if you just carry on as usual, you're going to have a Shabbos morning suda and you're going to have shalosh shudas. So you're only going to have 2 sudas. You're not going to have 3. What do you do? Says the Mishnah Berurah over here, says the Ramah, Hago. Umi shaloi achal b'leil Shabbos. If somebody did not eat a Friday night suda, says the Ramah, and this halacha a lot of people are not familiar with. Says the Ramah, yoichel shalosh su'udais b'yoyim ha-Shabbos. There's a tashlumin. There's a makeup. If you didn't eat a suda Friday night, okay, it's Shabbos by day, eat 3 sudas, Shabbos by day. You'll eat your Shabbos morning suda, you'll bench a little bit later, sit down, wash, have a little deli sandwich, or whatever it is, and then later eat shalosh sudas. So you're going to have 3 sudas for your Shabbos. Brings this down from the Rosh and Arvei Pesachim. Mishnah Berurah goes a little bit more into the details over here. Mishnah Berurah is cutting hay b'leil Shabbos. Now, it says the Mishnah Berurah like this. Realize, remember, Kiddush Friday night is a daraisa. Now, if you didn't eat a suda at all Friday night, then we're assuming you didn't even have Kiddush Friday night. All right. So we're dealing with somebody now, Shabbos morning. He had no suda Friday night at all. He didn't even make Kiddush Friday night. He didn't even hear Kiddush Friday night. So says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois cutting hay, B'leil Shabbos, you're going to make a tashlumin, you're going to eat an extra suda Shabbos by day, the gam kein tzarich lekadesh b'shachris. You need to make Kiddush Shabbos morning, not the regular Shabbos day Kiddush. You need to make Friday night Kiddush Shabbos by day, because you didn't have Kiddush Friday night. V'gam kein tzarich lekadesh b'shachris kol ha-Kiddush shalayla. You have to make the Friday night Kiddush milavad vayechulu. You don't say vayechulu. So you're going to say the Friday night Kiddush. You're going to start with, you're going to make a bar pri agafen. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, bar pri agafen. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav v'ratzavanu v'shabbos kacha. That's what you're going to say. So you're going to skip vayechulu. So you're going to make the Friday night Kiddush without Vayechulu. Im loy Kiddush Barvis. If you didn't make Kiddush Friday night. The Chanal b'Siman Reish Ayin Aleph Sivches. We actually learned this earlier in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. So again, if you didn't have a Suda Friday night, and you didn't even have Kiddush Friday night, so there are two things that you need to take care of. One is you need to make sure that you have 3 Su'udais on Shabbos. So you're going to eat an extra Suda Shabbos day to make up for the Friday night Suda. Also, you need to make up Kiddush. You didn't have Friday night Kiddush. So says the Mishnah Berurah, you make the Friday night Kiddush Shabbos by day. But you leave out Vayechulu. Now, why do you leave out Vayechulu? Because what's Vayechulu? Vayechulu Shamayim v'aretz v'chol tzavam. The work of Brias Ha'olam, the work of creation, was completed. Vayechulu Shamayim v'aretz v'chol tzavam. Well, that was completed Friday night. It wasn't completed Shabbos by day. So Vayechulu is inappropriate to Shabbos day. That's why you leave it out of this Kiddush. Continues the Mishnah Berurah. Who had been Yom Tov? The same halacha applies to Yom Tov, Rabbi say. Mi shaloi achal b'leil Yom Tov. Let's say it's Sukkot, and the first night of Sukkot something happened. You didn't have a Suda. The first night of Sukkot. All right. On Yom Tov, there's no chiyuv of shalosh Sudas. There's no chiyuv to eat 3 Sudas on Yom Tov, but there is a chiyuv to eat 2 Sudas on Yom Tov. A night Suda and a day Suda. If you missed the night Suda, you have to make a tashlumin. You have to make a make-up Suda the next day. So you have to eat 2 Sudas by day. So says the Mishnah Berurah, who had didn't be Yom Tov. Mi shaloi achal b'leil Yom Tov. If you didn't eat Yom Tov night, tzarich lechal shtei Sudas l'machar b'yom. You need to eat 2 Sudas tomorrow by day. To be Yom Tov, a chiyuv hu shtei Sudas. Because on Yom Tov, there's only a chiyuv to eat 2 Sudas, not 3. Achas b'layla, 1 at night, v'achas b'yom. V'hu adin, sheyom b'shachris kol ha-kiddush shel Yom Tov shalayla. Im loy kiddush b'layla. Same halacha. If you didn't make Kiddush Yom Tov by night, asher b'chabanu mikalam v'raimamanu mikalashayin v'kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav. If you didn't make that Kiddush Yom Tov night, then you're going to eat an extra Suda Yom Tov day, and you're going to make that Kiddush. Asher b'chabanu mikalam. You're going to make it by day to make up for the Kiddush. Ois kat vav. So in this case, shalish su'udais b'yom. You're going to eat 3 Sudas during the day. Now here we have a very interesting halacha. Let's remember. Let's say it's Friday night and you eat your Suda, and after your Suda you bench and you neglect to say Ritzei. Well, if you don't realize that you missed Ritzei until the end of benching, you got to bench over again. Why do you have to bench over again? Because Shabbos there's a chiyuv to eat a Suda with pas. There's a chiyuv to wash and eat bread. Once you wash and eat bread, you have a chiyuv to bench. Since you have a chiyuv, since Shabbos is creating a chiyuv for you to wash, eat bread, and then bench, that benching must be said with ritzei. If you leave out ritzei, you got to bench over again. Same halacha is true Shabbos by day. If you skip ritzei, you got to bench over again. Shalosh Sudas not so fast. Shalosh Sudas you don't necessarily, we'll learn that halacha soon. Shalosh Sudas you don't necessarily have to repeat benching if you missed ritzei. Now we're talking here about the halacha. What do you do if you didn't eat Friday night? So now you're going to make 3 Sudas Shabbos by day. Now, how do these 3 Sudas work? Well, let's borrow for a minute from the halacha of davening a tashlumin. Let's say somebody missed Shachris. So now he's going to daven a tashlumin. He's going to daven 2, what we always call it is, he's going to daven 2 minchas. But he's not going to daven 2 minchas. One Shemona Esrei that he davens is going to be the Mincha Shemona Esrei. The other Shemona Esrei that he davens is going to be the makeup Shemona Esrei for Shachris. So he's not davening 2 Minchas. He's davening a Mincha and a Tashlumin for Shachris. Which Shemona Esrei is which? He's going to daven 2 Shemona Esreis. Which one is the Mincha? Which one is the Shachris? So you'll say, man, what's the difference? He's davening 2 Shemona Esreis. No, it does make a difference. You have to daven and have kavanah for the appropriate Shemona Esrei. The halacha is that the Mincha Shemona Esrei is the first one. Why? Because you will always daven the davening that's appropriate for the time that you're in first. Right now, it's the afternoon. You're davening Mincha. You have a chiyuv of Mincha. So the first Shemona Esrei is the Mincha Shemona Esrei. The second Shemona Esrei is the Tashlumin, the makeup for Shachris. It's a little bit counterintuitive. Because like this, somebody might have said, I don't know, I guess I go in chronological order. I missed Shachris, I got to daven 2 Shemona Esreis now. First I'll daven the Shachris Shemona Esrei, then I'll daven the Mincha Shemona Esrei. No, it's not the way it works. The time slot that you're in is the Mincha time slot. So Mincha has to go first. You have to cover your chiyuv for now first. So the first Shemona Esrei is mincha. The second Shemona Esrei is the tashlumin for shachris. Now let's go back to Siman Reis Tzadik Aleph. You're eating now 3 sudas. You missed your Friday night suda, so you need to make a tashlumin. When you sit down to eat Shabbos by day, your first suda is going to be your Shabbos day suda. Your second suda is going to be the tashlumin suda for Friday night. Now, let's say by that second suda, which is the tashlumin suda for Friday night, you forget to say ritzei. Now, off the top of your head, somebody would ask you this shiloh, I forgot to say ritzei, do I bench again? Well, yeah, it's Shabbos, you didn't say ritzei, you bench again. Not so fast. Why? Because there's a suffix here. What's the suffix? Suffix is like this. Yes, you have a chiyuv now to eat the suda, because you need to make up a tashlumin for the Friday night suda. So yes, you have a chiyuv to wash, you have a chiyuv to eat pas, and you have a chiyuv to eat this suda. But this is a highly irregular chiyuv. Not everybody has this chiyuv. Somebody walks by now and he sees you eating an extra suda Shabbos afternoon. What are you doing? You eating 3 sudas Shabbos by day? Oh, it's a tashlumin. That's a chiyuv that's unique to you because you didn't eat Friday night. Therefore, this creates a suffix in halacha. Maybe, even though you have a chiyuv to eat this suda with pas, but since it's only a personal chiyuv, since it's only unique to you, and it's not a chiyuv on the whole tzibur, maybe it's not necessary to repeat ritzei. That's 30,000 feet without getting too deep into this. That's the background over here. So says the Mishnah Berurah over here is cut vav. V'im shachach ritzei bebrichas hamazayin besuda shniya. If you forget ritzei by that second suda Shabbos afternoon, the one that's a tashlumin for the Friday night suda, mitzadidim ha'achreinim shaloi lachzor levarech. The achreinim take the position that you should not bench over again. Okay, now we turn to Sif Beis. Says the Mechaber, Zmano, the proper time for Shalosh Shudas, Mishiyagia Zman HaMincha, is beginning with Mincha Gedola, the time when you're first allowed to daven Mincha, Dahainu Mishei Shoyz Umechzu Olamayla, which is 6.5 hours into the day and on, in a perfect storm, a perfect day, 12:30, right? 12:30 and on, 6.5 hours into the day and on. That's what's called Mincha Gedola. That's the first time you're allowed to daven Mincha. Starting with Mincha Gedola, that's when the Zman is for Shalosh Shudas. If you eat Shalosh Shudas before Mincha Gedola, Loikia Mitzvah Suda Shlishis, you did not fulfill your mitzvah of eating Shalosh Shudas. Says the Mishnah Berurah Kat Zayin, Mishei Shayis Umechza. Says the Mishnah Berurah an interesting halacha. Let's say you start eating Shalosh Shudas not only before Mincha Gedola, you start eating Shalosh Shudas even before Chatzos. Okay, that's not the Zman of Shalosh Shudas. But the Nimchecha Hasuda, but you have a festa Shalosh Shudas. You know, you have lox, and you have herring, and you have salmon, and you have tuna fish, and you have gefilte fish, and white fish. You're going on and on with your Shalosh Shudas. The Nimchecha Hasuda, the Suda drags out, at 1:15, at 1:45, you're still eating Shalosh Shudas. So yeah, you started Shalosh Shudas even before Chatzos, but you didn't finish Shalosh Shudas until after the Zman of Mincha Gedola. Yotza, Yoytza. Now, the Mishnah Berurah does not say you stretched out your Shalosh Shudas until after Mincha Gedola, and you ate at least a kibetza and a little bit more of pas after Mincha Gedola, Yoytza. That would be a davar pashut, Rabbi say. If you ate more than a kibetza of pas after Mincha Gedola, so of course Yoytza, Shalosh Shudas. The chiddush over here is you washed for Shalosh Shudas before Chatzos. You ate your kibetza of pas before Chatzos. Your Suda dragged out until after Mincha Gedola. What did you eat after Mincha Gedola? You had dessert. You had a little ice cream. And then you menched. So you did not eat after Mincha Gedola a kviyus Suda for Shalosh Shudas. But the Shalosh Shudas dragged out until after Mincha Gedola. So you didn't bench until after Mincha Gedola. You ate dessert after Mincha Gedola. You yoytza. I'll call part of my call bizmana. Because you were eating Shalosh Shudas during the time slot of Shalosh Shudas. We don't go after the beginning of the Suda. Okay, let's go back into the Shulchan Aruch here. Let's see the words of the Ramah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines into Siman Reis Tzadik Aleph. Haga, near the end of the line. Says the Rama. Yesh Aimrim, there are those that say, very interesting halacha. Yesh Aimrim, there are those that say, the Asa Lishtais Mayim, that you're not allowed to drink water, Bein Mincha L'Ma'ariv b'Shabbos, between when you daven Mincha and when you daven Ma'ariv on Shabbos. Why? The Oz Chayzrais HaNeshamas L'Gehenim, because we know that the Neshamas that are in Gehenim get a reprieve on Shabbos. They're released from Gehenim for Shabbos. Now, after you daven Mincha, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, it's getting very close to the end of the day. It's getting close to Moshe Shabbos. Once it's the Zman, the Neshamas Nebuch are going back into Gehenim. Okay, what does that have to do with us? The Oz Chayzrais HaNeshamas L'Gehenim, at the end of the day, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, that's when the Neshamas are getting ready to go back into Gehenim, and we'll see what that has to do with us in the Mishnah Berurah. But first, let's continue the Ramah. Valkain. And since we have this Yesh Ibram that says you can't drink water between Mincha and Ma'ariv on Shabbos afternoon, therefore, Valkain, Ein Lechol Sudish Lishis by Mincha and Ma'ariv. You shouldn't eat Shalosh Shudas between Mincha and Ma'ariv. Why? Because if you eat, you're going to drink. And you can't drink water between Mincha and Ma'ariv. Now, right away, everybody's wondering, what do you mean? We all eat Shalosh Shudas between Mincha and Ma'ariv. We'll get to that. But this is the Yesh Ibram. The Yesh Ibram says, you're not supposed to drink water between when you daven Mincha, daven Ma'ariv, Shabbos evening, because that's when the Neshamas are going back to Gehenim. Since you're not allowed to drink water, you shouldn't eat Shalosh Shudas, because when you eat Shalosh Shudas, you're going to drink water. And therefore the Ramah suggests, rather, you should eat Shalosh Shudas before Mincha. Okay, this is what the Ramah brings down from Taisus and the Rosh and the Mordechai. But then continues the Ramah, and he says, V'yesh Shomrim, but there are those that say, the Yoser Tov L'Hispal Mincha Tchila, that quite the opposite. It's better to daven Mincha before you eat Shalosh Shudas. He brings this down on the Rambam, the Torah, Dagos Mordechai, Dagos Maimonides, and the Agur. And in our Medinos, that's the way we're noyig. Pashtus, the reason for these Rishonim, is because, what? You're going to be Kaves Suda and you're going to eat Shalosh Shudas before you daven Mincha? Once it's the Zman of Mincha G'dayla, you have a Chiyav of Mincha. You can be Kaves Suda. When you have a Chiyav of Mincha, you can be Kaves Suda before you eat Mincha, before you daven Mincha? That's problematic. You're not supposed to be Kaves Suda before you daven Mincha. So therefore, these Rishonim suggest, no, you gotta daven Mincha first, and only then can you eat Shalosh Shudas. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah is got ches. You don't drink water between Mincha and Ma'ariv, the Oz Chayzrais, because that's when the Neshamas are getting ready to go back to Gehenim. Ritzon Eloymar, what the Ramah means to say is, the Oz Koroiv, Lizman HaChazar Gehenim. Once you daven Mincha, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, it's already getting close to the time that the Neshamas have to go back to Gehenim. The Issa B'Medrash is brought down in the Medrash of Tehillim. Anybody who drinks water during the Ben Hashmashas period on Shabbos evening, it's like he's stealing from his relatives that have already passed on. Where I believe it says over there that the Neshamas, before they go back to Gehenim, they drink a lot of water. Now, we don't know what this means. There's no bodies, there's no corporal being up in Olam HaEmes, so we don't know exactly what this means. This is beyond our pay grade, and so what? So the Neshamas are drinking water. What does that have to do with you drinking water? Obviously, this involves esoteric information that we do not possess and we do not understand. But whatever it is, that's what's brought down. You're not supposed to drink water between when you daven Mincha and when you daven Ma'ariv. And therefore, says the Ramah, don't eat Shalosh Shudas. Depending on Gam Lishtais, because if you drink Shalosh Shudas, you might drink some water. But then the Ramah brought down the second opinion in the Rishonim, that Adarabah, Mincha Tchila, you should definitely daven Mincha before you eat Shalosh Shudas. Why? This sounds like a machlokes between, we're speaking a little funny here. It sounds like a machlokes between a Chusid and a Litvak. You know, the Chusid says, no, you got to eat Shalosh Shudas before Mincha, because what do you mean? The Neshamas, they're going back to Gehenim. The Litvak turns around and says, what are you talking about? It's a Beferish halacha. Now, you're not allowed to be Kaveh Suda before you daven Mincha. So you got to daven Mincha first. Mincha Tchila das alechol, achi yispal. Vadei Rishonos vir la desudik tani shari. Aye. So what does the first opinion hold? How are you eating Shalosh Shudas before you daven mincha? No, because you're not eating a major Suda. You're eating a small Suda. Also, well, let's see. Let's cut Yud Aleph first. Like the second opinion to daven mincha first, says the Mishnah Berurah. If you have a pressing reason why it's not going to be easy for you to eat Shalosh Shudas after mincha, so you want to eat Shalosh Shudas before mincha, it's even a lechatchila to eat Shalosh Shudas before mincha. Let's remember that when it comes to davening mincha, there are two zmanim that we talk about. Mincha gedola, literally the big mincha. Mincha ketana, literally the small mincha. What does that mean? The earliest time you're allowed to daven mincha is mincha gedola. It's a half hour after chatzos. That's the earliest time that they were allowed to bring the carbon tabid shel bein arabayim, the afternoon carbon tabid in the Beis Hamikdash. So that's the earliest time you could daven mincha. Why is it called mincha gedola? Because from then until the end of the zman of mincha, until shkia, you have a lot of time. So that's called the big mincha, mincha gedola. But that's not really the optimum necessarily time to daven mincha. There's mincha ketana. Mincha ketana is 2.5 hours before shkia. That's called mincha ketana. That's the smaller time slot for mincha. What's the significance of that time slot? That's when they normally brought the carbon tabid shel bein arabayim in the Beis Hamikdash. They didn't typically bring the carbon tabid by mincha gedola. They typically brought it by mincha ketana. So that's the mincha ketana. What the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here is, listen, if you ever need to eat Shalosh Shudas before mincha, certainly if it's not yet mincha ketana, if you're holding between mincha gedola and mincha ketana, then certainly you could still eat Shalosh Shudas. Because yes, it's already the zman of mincha, but it's not the optimum time for mincha. The optimal time for mincha is after mincha ketana. So it's okay. If you were already in mincha ketana, so then we're not going to let you go be kaveh suda before you daven mincha. But you're not at mincha ketana yet. You're at mincha gedola, so it's okay. B'Siman Reish Lamed Beis b'Mishnah Berurah or B'Siman Reish Tzadik b'Mishnah Berurah. We're going to stop over here. We'll pick up next time with Mishnah Berurah's Cutting Your Base. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be Megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshua and for us Parnassah Shadukrim to those in need. We should be zeichet to see the Bias Kol Tzedek B'Meheri V'Yameinu Amen. Be well.